Ladies and gentlemen, listen to me now. This is your time. When a woman makes a decision to focus on herself, to put her own peace, her own purpose, above the noise, miracles start to unfold. You stop apologizing for wanting something better. You stop explaining why you choose solitude over chaos, why you choose your dreams over distraction. You see, there is power in being still. It's strength in staying silent when the world expects you to react. And there is wisdom in knowing that not every battle is worth your spirit. Because when you take your focus off the opinions of others and you place it back onto your growth, you become unstoppable. A woman who knows herself as a force no one can shake. When you refuse to let your worth be determined by the validation you do or do not receive, you unlock a freedom most people will never taste. And that freedom, listen to me, is where the miracles live. That freedom is where you start to attract the right people, the right opportunities, the right energy into your life. Don't be afraid to disappoint those who expect you to shrink. Don't be afraid to be misunderstood. You don't owe the world an explanation for the way you protect your peace. You owe it to yourself to honor your calling, to believe that you deserve more, to trust that the moment you put yourself first, everything will fall into place. So stand tall. Stay silent when your spirit tells you to. Focus on your path. Because when you do, life has a way of rewarding you in ways you can't even imagine. That's not arrogance. That's alignment. That's faith. That's knowing that miracles don't come to those who wait for permission. They come to those who are willing to walk alone until they find their truth. You are that woman. And when you focus on yourself, miracles happen. Prioritizing yourself leads to personal peace and clarity, because it requires you to slow down and examine what truly matters to you beyond the noise of other people's expectations. It is an intentional decision to stop living on autopilot and to step back into your own body, your own mind, your own heart. When you decide that your well-being is not optional but essential, you begin to realize how much energy you once wasted on things that did not nourish you or contribute to your growth. You begin to see how much time you spent trying to please everyone around you, trying to live up to standards that were never yours to begin with. This act of prioritizing yourself is not about selfishness, as so many are conditioned to believe. It is about self-respect and the understanding that you cannot give to others from an empty cup. It is about acknowledging that your needs, your feelings, and your dreams are worthy of space and care. This shift in perspective frees you from the chronic anxiety that comes from constantly measuring your worth through the eyes of others. When you finally give yourself permission to be your own first priority, you create an inner stillness that no one else can take away. Personal peace arrives when you stop apologizing for taking up space and start seeing your own life as something sacred. You begin to identify what drains you and what restores you. You notice the relationships that have become one-sided, the obligations that feel heavy instead of meaningful, the commitments that no longer align with the person you are becoming. As you clear away what does not belong, you create room for clarity. That clarity guides your choices, your boundaries, and your daily rhythms. It helps you distinguish between what you do out of genuine love and what you do out of fear or habit. Prioritizing yourself also means becoming more honest about your limitation. You stop pretending that you can be everything to everyone and that you must carry every burden alone. You realize that rest is not weakness, that saying no is not cruelty, and that protecting your energy is an act of love for yourself and everyone you care about. As you practice this, the constant mental clutter begins to fade, leaving you with a deeper sense of calm. When you invest in your own growth and healing, you develop a stronger connection to your intuition. You can hear your inner voice more clearly because it is no longer drowned out by the noise of other people's opinions. You start to trust yourself in ways you never could before. You start to notice the subtle signals your body sends when something is right for you or when something is not. This connection to your own wisdom becomes a compass that keeps you steady even when life feels unpredictable. Prioritizing yourself also means honoring your own timing. You stop rushing to catch up with someone else's timeline. You release the pressure to achieve or prove yourself by arbitrary deadlines. Instead, you allow yourself to grow, to unfold, to learn at the pace that feels off. In that space, you experience peace because you are no longer trying to control what cannot be controlled or forced, what is not meant for you. Another aspect of personal clarity comes from understanding your core values. When you pause to reflect on what truly matters to you, decisions become simpler. You no longer feel the same confusion about what direction to take or which opportunities to pursue. You evaluate your options through the lens of your principles. If something compromises your integrity, it is no longer an option. If something fuels your purpose, you make space for it without guilt. Prioritizing yourself leads to the realization that you are allowed to change your mind. You are allowed to let go of identities and dreams that once felt essential but now feel heavy. You are allowed to release relationships that cannot meet you where you are. You are allowed to walk away from environments that dim your light. This permission to evolve brings a freedom that so many never give themselves. That freedom is the birthplace of peace. The clarity you gain from this process also transforms how you relate to others. When you are no longer dependent on external validation, you can love more freely because you are not loving to get something back. You are not seeking approval, reassurance, or permission. You are simply showing up as you are without masks. This authenticity invites deeper, more fulfilling connections because you are not afraid of being seen in your wholeness. Prioritizing yourself teaches you how to hold space for your own emotions without judgment. You learn to sit with discomfort instead of running from it or numbing it away. You learn that your feelings are not problems to be solved, but messages to be heard. This self-acceptance creates peace because you are no longer at war with yourself. You stop fighting your own heart and start listening to it. You also begin to recognize that peace does not mean the absence of challenges. It means you trust yourself to handle whatever comes your way. You develop resilience because you have built a strong foundation within. You no longer need everything around you to be perfect in order to feel steady. That steadiness is something you cultivate by consistently choosing yourself again and again. In prioritizing yourself, you become more intentional with your time. You stop saying yes out of obligation. You stop stretching yourself thin to maintain appearances. Instead, you give your energy to what truly matters. You discover the quiet joy that comes from living in alignment with your own truth. You find fulfillment not in doing more, but in doing what feels meaningful. When you focus on yourself, you also cultivate gratitude. You begin to appreciate the small moments that used to slip by unnoticed. The warmth of morning light, the softness of your own breath, the simple relief of putting down what is too heavy. Gratitude becomes a daily practice that nourishes your spirit and anchors you in the present. Prioritizing yourself allows you to create a life that feels like yours. Not a life built from other people's expectations, not a life constructed to avoid criticism, but a life shaped by your own hands and your own heart. That ownership brings peace because it means you are no longer living as a reaction to the world around you. You are living as a reflection of your own values and dreams. As you continue this journey, clarity becomes your natural state. You no longer second guess every decision or question your worth at every turn. You understand that you are enough as you are and that your needs are valid. You become kinder to yourself, more forgiving of your imperfections, and more patient with your process. This is why prioritizing yourself is so powerful. It dissolves the illusions that keep you stuck. It reminds you that you do not have to earn the right to rest, to heal, or to take up space. It shows you that peace is not something to be found outside of you. It is something you create when you decide to honor your own soul. It is something that grows when you let go of what does not serve you and step fully into who you are meant to be. Letting go of external validation empowers your true purpose because it requires you to look honestly at the ways you have been measuring your worth by other people's opinions. So many of us are raised to believe that approval is the currency of belonging. We are taught sometimes subtly and sometimes directly that if we can just impress enough people or keep everyone happy, we will finally feel secure in ourselves. But the truth is that living for validation is like trying to fill a bucket with no bottom. No amount of praise or recognition can sustain you if you have not learned how to accept yourself from within. When you begin to loosen your attachment to external approval, you will probably feel fear at first. The fear comes from the idea that you might be rejected or misunderstood. It is natural to worry that you will lose connection with the people around you if you stop performing for them, but this discomfort is part of the process. It is the space between who you were and who you are becoming. Letting go means allowing yourself to stand in that space without trying to run back to familiar patterns. It means observing your urge to please without automatically obeying. As you practice releasing the need for validation, you start to discover parts of yourself you may have hidden or suppressed. You begin to realize how many choices you have made simply to earn applause or avoid criticism. You see the ways you have shaped your personality, your ambitions, and even your values to match what others expected of you. This realization can feel heavy, but it is also liberating. Because once you see it clearly, you have the power to choose differently. The moment you decide that your worth does not depend on how others see you, you take back the authority you once gave away. You no longer need to wait for permission to live in alignment with your truth. You no longer need to convince anyone to understand your heart. You simply start showing up as you are, without explanation. And in doing so, you create space for your true purpose to emerge. Your purpose is not something that can be defined by consensus. It is not a role you perform to fit in. It is the expression of your unique gifts, passions, and values. When you are preoccupied with chasing approval, you will inevitably compromise some of those gifts. You will dilute your voice to make it more palatable. You will abandon ideas that feel risky. You will shrink yourself to avoid confrontation. And every time you do, you move a little further away from the life you are meant to create. Letting go of external validation is the process of returning to yourself. It is remembering that you have an inner compass that will always guide you if you are willing to trust it. You start to prioritize your own standards over the expectations of others. You start to ask yourself what feels true instead of what looks good. You begin to measure success by your own definition rather than someone else's checklist. This shift does not mean you stop caring about people altogether. It does not mean you become indifferent to feedback or blind to your impact on others. It means you learn to discern the difference between constructive guidance and approval seeking. You can listen to input without letting it dictate your choices. You can value connection without making it the source of your identity. When you stop relying on validation to feel good about yourself, you also become less reactive to criticism. You understand that not everyone will agree with you or support your journey, and that is okay. Their opinions reflect their own beliefs, biases, and fears, not an objective truth about your worth. You develop resilience because your sense of self no longer rises and falls with someone else's praise or disapproval. This kind of inner freedom unlocks creativity. When you are no longer editing yourself to please the crowd, you can explore ideas that feel alive in your spirit. You can take risks that might not make sense to anyone else but feel necessary to you. You can express your vision without censoring it to avoid judgment. This is how you begin to fulfill your true purpose, by allowing what is inside you to come forward without compromise. Letting go of validation also transforms your relationships. When you are no longer performing for acceptance, you start to attract people who value your authenticity. You build connections based on mutual respect rather than obligation or pretense. You become more honest about your needs and boundaries because you are not afraid of losing approval. And you learn to appreciate yourself so deeply that you stop tolerating relationships that require you to abandon your truth. This process requires patience and self-compassion. It is not something you can master overnight. You will still feel the pull to seek reassurance. You will still have moments when you wonder if you are doing enough or being enough, but every time you choose to trust yourself instead of chasing validation, you strengthen your confidence. You learn that you can survive discomfort. You discover that you can be okay, even if no one else understands your path. When you stop depending on validation, you also become more present in your life. You are no longer constantly evaluating yourself through the imagined gaze of others. You can focus on what feels meaningful in each moment. You can experience your own joy without worrying whether it looks impressive. You can follow your curiosity without needing anyone to approve of your choices. This presence is what makes your life feel real and fulfilling. Over time, you will notice that the voice in your head becomes keener. The inner critic that once echoed the judgments of others begins to quiet down. In its place, you develop an inner ally, an encouraging presence that reminds you of your inherent worth. This voice will guide you back to your purpose every time you start to drift into old habits of people pleasing. Your purpose is often simpler than you expect. It does not have to be grand or universally recognized. It is the work, the service, the expression that feels aligned with who you are. It is the way you show up in the world when you are not trying to be something you are not. It is the quiet knowing that your life has value simply because you are here, growing, learning, and contributing in your own way. The courage to let go of validation comes from understanding that you will never be able to control how others see you. No matter how hard you try to curate your image, people will interpret you through their own filters. Some will admire you, some will misunderstand you, and some will never accept you. Trying to win everyone over is a losing game that will drain your spirit and distract you from your purpose. Freedom begins the moment you decide to stop playing that game. It begins when you commit to honoring your own truth, even if it costs you approval. It begins when you trust that you are worthy of love and respect exactly as you are. This trust becomes the foundation on which you build a life that is both authentic and meaningful. Letting go of validation is not an act of defiance for the sake of rebellion. It is an act of devotion to the part of you that knows why you are here. It is a commitment to listen to your own heart more than the noise around you. It is a promise to keep showing up as yourself, knowing that this is the only way to fulfill your true purpose. Silence is strength. It protects your energy in ways that many people don't immediately recognize because our culture often rewards constant talking, constant sharing, and constant reaction. When you choose silence, especially in moments when everyone expects you to respond, you are making a powerful statement about where you are willing to place your attention and what you are willing to spend your energy on. Silence becomes a deliberate act of self-preservation and self-respect. It is not about weakness or submission. It is about understanding that not every comment deserves a reply, not every provocation requires a defense, and not every situation is worth the depletion of your spirit. There is a quiet confidence in knowing you do not have to announce everything you feel or think. You can hold your own counsel and trust your own judgment without seeking validation from others. When you practice silence, you learn how to listen to others, to your surroundings, and most importantly, to yourself. You begin to hear the subtle cues of your intuition, which often get drowned out by the noise of constant dialogue and over-explanation. Silence also teaches you discernment. You start to notice how much energy is wasted trying to prove your worth, justify your choices, or defend your boundaries to people who have already decided what they think of you. Instead of investing your energy in trying to change their minds, you can redirect that energy inward toward your own growth and peace. This is how silence becomes a shield. It filters out the distractions and keeps you anchored in what matters most. When you embrace silence, you create space between stimulus and response. You are no longer reacting impulsively to every trigger or demand. You have the freedom to pause, to breathe, and to decide how you want to engage, if you even want to engage at all. This space is where your power lives. It gives you the clarity to see which battles are worth fighting and which ones are simply noise designed to pull you away from yourself. There is also a deep sense of dignity that comes with silence. It communicates to others that you value your own peace more than the need to be right. It shows that you are not afraid to let others have their opinions because your sense of self does not depend on their agreement. You become rooted in your own truth without feeling the compulsion to broadcast it. In a world that constantly demands an immediate response, silence is a radical act of self-trust. Silence protects your energy by interrupting the cycle of reactivity that so often leaves people feeling drained and resentful. When you refuse to be baited into unnecessary conflict or drama, you are conserving emotional and mental resources that can be put to better use. You learn that it is not your responsibility to educate or correct everyone. You are not obligated to participate in every conversation or debate. This selective engagement allows you to show up fully where you choose while preserving your reserves for what truly matters. Silence also gives you the opportunity to process your experiences without outside influence. Instead of sharing every thought or emotion the moment it arises, you can sit with it. You can observe it, question it, and understand it on a deeper level. This internal processing helps you respond from a place of intention rather than impulse. You begin to trust your own timing rather than feeling pressured to meet the world's demand for immediacy. When you choose silence, you also create an aura of mystery that can be deeply empowering. You do not have to reveal everything about yourself to be authentic. Some parts of your journey are meant to be private, held sacred in your own heart. This discretion becomes a boundary that protects your energy from unnecessary scrutiny and judgment. You become the guardian of your own story, sharing it only with those who have earned the right to hear it. Silence is a form of wisdom that teaches you the value of observation. While others rush to fill the space with words, you are learning. You are watching body language, noticing tone, picking up on what is not being said. This insight gives you an advantage because you are not distracted by the need to perform. You can see situations more clearly and make decisions from a place of calm awareness. Practicing silence does not mean suppressing your voice or avoiding necessary conversation. It means learning when your voice will serve a purpose and when it will only deplete you. It is the understanding that sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. Sometimes silence speaks louder than any argument or explanation ever could. It is the declaration that you will not participate in dynamics that compromise your integrity or peace. Silence also teaches you patience. In moments of uncertainty, you can sit with the unknown without trying to force clarity. You can allow answers to reveal themselves in their own time. This patience builds resilience because you are not constantly seeking external reassurance. You are learning to rely on your own inner compass to guide you through periods of doubt or confusion. In relationships, silence can be a profound teacher. When you step back from the need to fill every gap with conversation, you create space for genuine connection to grow. You learn to listen without planning your response. You begin to appreciate the depth that arises when two people can share presence without the constant exchange of words. In this stillness, trust and intimacy have room to flourish. Silence also becomes a refuge when life feels overwhelming. It is a place you can return to again and again to recharge and realign. You can create rituals of quiet, whether it is a morning meditation, an evening walk without your phone, or simply sitting in a room alone to gather your thoughts. These moments of intentional stillness remind you that you are allowed to take up space without constantly producing or responding. In professional settings, silence can be a strategic asset. It demonstrates confidence and composure. When you are not rushing to fill every silence in a meeting or negotiation, you signal that you are comfortable with your own presence. You give others a chance to reveal their intentions and perspectives. This patience can lead to better outcomes because you are not making decisions reactively. Silence protects your energy by helping you recognize what is yours to carry and what is not. You begin to see that many of the problems people bring to you are not your responsibility to solve. You can offer empathy without absorbing their emotions. You can witness their struggles without sacrificing your own well-being. This boundary allows you to be supportive without becoming enmeshed. Over time, practicing silence helps you build a more sustainable way of living. You are no longer expending energy on constant reaction and explanation. You are no longer scattering your attention across countless distractions. Instead, you are conserving your resources for what aligns with your values and nourishes your spirit. This conservation is what allows you to show up fully in the areas of your life that matter most. There is also a profound self-respect that grows when you realize you do not have to participate in every conversation to be relevant. You do not have to prove your intelligence, your goodness, or your worth through constant commentary. You are enough simply by being. Silence becomes a testament to that sufficiency. In a world that often mistakes noise for importance, silence is a reminder that true power is quiet, steady, and self-contained. It does not need to be announced or advertised, it simply is. When you embrace this power, you free yourself from the exhausting cycle of overexposure and reaction. You learn to trust that your energy is precious, and you have every right to protect it with the simple, radical choice to remain silent. When you honor your own journey, life aligns in unexpected ways because you stop resisting who you are and start trusting that everything you have experienced has shaped you for a reason. You stop comparing your timeline to anyone else's, and you begin to see the unique path that is unfolding just for you. This shift in perspective is often subtle at first. You may notice that you feel a little less urgency to prove yourself and a little more acceptance for where you are right now. You start to understand that there is no single way to live a meaningful life. Your purpose doesn't have to look like anyone else's to be worth it. Honoring your journey means recognizing that every season you have walked through has carried lessons, even the ones that broke your heart. Instead of judging yourself for the detours or the mistakes, you begin to see them as part of the curriculum of your growth. You stop regretting the time you think you wasted because you realize nothing was wasted. Even the painful chapters have taught you about resilience, compassion, and your own strength. This acceptance creates space for unexpected alignment. When you release the grip of how you think things should be, you open yourself to possibilities you couldn't have imagined. Opportunities begin to appear, not because you forced them into existence, but because you became willing to receive them. People who resonate with your authenticity start to show up. Circumstances that match your true values start to unfold naturally. Honoring your journey also means you start to trust the timing of your life. You no longer panic when progress feels slow or when other people seem to be moving ahead faster than you. You understand that your path is not a race, and that there are seasons meant for preparation as much as there are seasons meant for harvest. In this trust, you find peace. You no longer exhaust yourself chasing timelines that do not belong to you. When you choose to respect your own experiences, you develop a deeper sense of self-worth that is not dependent on comparison or external validation. You recognize that you are enough as you are in this moment. This realization is powerful because it frees you from the cycle of trying to be someone you're not in order to fit in or gain approval. You begin to make decisions that feel right in your body and spirit rather than decisions that look good on the outside. This alignment can look like unexpected clarity. You may suddenly understand why certain doors had to close, why some relationships ended, or why you were called to pivot in your career. You see that the universe was not punishing you, it was guiding you toward what was meant for you all along. You start to notice that when you honor your own journey, even the setbacks become stepping stones. There is also an inner confidence that grows when you own your story. You stop hiding the parts of yourself that feel imperfect or unpolished. You see that your vulnerability is part of your power. The courage it takes to be real about where you've been creates a magnetism that draws in the right people. You no longer feel the need to perform or pretend. You simply show up as yourself, and life begins to meet you there. When you honor your own path, you also become more compassionate toward others. You recognize that everyone is carrying their own invisible burdens, fighting their own battles, and learning their own lessons. This understanding makes you less judgmental and more open-hearted. You stop projecting your expectations onto others, just as you stop allowing their expectations to dictate your life. Honoring your journey means listening to the quiet voice within you that knows what you need, even when it contradicts what others expect. It means saying yes to the things that light you up and no to the things that drain you. It means trusting that your intuition is a valid guide, even if you can't justify every decision logically. When you start to live this way, alignment happens organically. You find yourself in situations that feel nourishing rather than depleting. You connect with people who see and appreciate the real you. Sometimes honoring your journey looks like slowing down. It means giving yourself permission to rest when you are tired instead of pushing through out of fear of falling behind. Other times it looks like taking bold action, stepping into the unknown without a guarantee of success. You begin to recognize that both rest and risk have their place, and that wisdom is knowing which one you need in each season. As you continue to honor your path, you start to notice synchronicities, small signs that reassure you that you are exactly where you are meant to be. You meet someone who has the perfect advice you needed to hear. You stumble upon a book that answers a question you've been holding in your heart. An opportunity arises that fits you better than anything you could have planned. These moments feel like gentle confirmations that your trust in yourself is not misplaced. This way of living requires courage because it asks you to let go of certainty and control. It asks you to surrender to the unfolding process without demanding that every step be clear in advance. But in this surrender, you find freedom. You realize that you don't have to have it all figured out to be moving in the right direction. You just have to keep showing up, listening to your inner guidance, and taking the next right step. When you honor your own journey, you stop apologizing for your dreams. You stop minimizing your desires to make other people comfortable. You understand that your aspirations are not selfish or unrealistic. They are clues pointing you towards your purpose. You start to give yourself permission to pursue them wholeheartedly. And as you do, life begins to align around your commitment. Resources appear. Allies emerge. Doors open. This alignment can feel almost magical, but it is really a natural outcome of living in integrity with yourself. When you are no longer scattering your energy trying to be who you think you should be, you can focus that energy on becoming who you truly are. This clarity attracts everything that resonates with your authentic frequency. You also begin to appreciate the present moment more fully. When you stop wishing you were somewhere else, further along, or more like someone else, you can finally experience the richness of your own life as it is. You find beauty in the ordinary, lessons in the challenges, and joy in the simple fact that you are here already. Honoring your journey helps you build resilience because you know that setbacks are not signs of failure, but invitations to grow. You develop the perspective to see obstacles as teachers rather than punishments. This mindset allows you to keep moving forward even when the path feels uncertain. You trust that every experience is contributing to your unfolding, even if you can't see how in the moment. Over time, this trust becomes your foundation. You no longer feel the need to rush, force, or control. You know that your life will reveal itself in its own time, and that your only job is to stay true to yourself along the way. This is where the deepest alignment happens, not in the moments when everything is going according to plan, but in the moments when you choose faith over fear. When you honor your own journey, you become a living example for others. Your authenticity inspires them to question where they have been compromising themselves. Your courage reminds them that it is possible to live a life that feels true. Without even trying, you give other people permission to do the same. This is how alignment ripples outward, touching lives in ways you may never fully see. In honoring your journey, you reclaim your power. You stop outsourcing your worth and direction to the expectations around you. You realize that you have always held the answers you were seeking. And as you continue to trust yourself, life aligns in ways that feel like grace, unplanned, surprising, and exactly right. That when you choose to honor your own journey, release the need for external validation, and embrace the quiet power of silence, you step into a life that reflects your true self. You begin to trust your own timing, your own intuition, and your own worth without apology. This alignment doesn't happen by accident. It is the result of consistently choosing authenticity over approval, purpose over performance, and peace over pleasing. As you keep showing up for yourself in this way, life starts to meet you with opportunities, connections, and experiences that feel natural and fulfilling. You realize you don't have to force anything to prove who you are. You simply have to stay faithful to your path. And in doing so, you discover a strength, clarity, and freedom that can never be taken from you.